What is the legacy of Blackhawks chairman Rocky Wirtz, who passed away suddenly Tuesday at the age of 70?
I think he's one of the most impactful owners in Chicago sports history. I think two things can be true. He saved the Blackhawks from irrelevance and brought them back to the point where we were discussing a dynasty in Chicago in terms of hockey, and this became a hockey town. He revitalized an organization, and then he presided over the same organization during the worst scandal in its history. So he had extreme success and extreme scandal, and both things can be true. And I kidded, before the show we were talking about, well, what do you do with all of this? The 3 cups in 6 seasons, and the Kyle Beech incident, and the liquor business, and Rocky Wirtz as the chairman and owner of the Blackhawks. And I said that's why they invented commas. His obituary is more than just the first line. Everybody says that in journalism, and well, that's going to be in the first line of his obit. Rocky Wirtz's obituary needs to be longer and needs to be more than just a sentence. And if it is just reduced to that, it's a run-on sentence, because you can't have one without the other. And I don't think you need to focus heavily or emphasize anyone over the other. If feel however you want to feel. News people will interpret today however they choose to interpret it. It is a news story. It's a huge story. Philanthropically, from the sports community, from the business community, Rocky Wirtz touched so many lives in Chicago that it's impossible to reduce it to just one thing and to remember him for just one incident. So I think it is complicated, and that's okay, because we can have gray area here, because Rocky Wirtz was a terrific sports owner, and he also was the owner of a franchise that should have done a better job and really lost its way during the Kyle Beech scandal. Both things are true.
Yeah, I mean, definitely complicated because of the end of it, when he had the outlash at the reporters and basically told the Sun to be quiet at the same time, and told the reporters to be quiet and said, "I'm in charge." But without him, this is not a hockey town. There's not a Blackhawks store on Michigan Avenue. You could say, hey, Kane and Taves. Absolutely Kane and Taves, but it's all the things that go around building a championship organization that the Blackhawks never did. I know a guy who drove to St. Louis in the 70s on his honeymoon to watch the Blackhawks play the Blues in the Stanley Cup playoffs, because you couldn't watch the games in Chicago. Guy's still married, by the way.
Shout out his wife.
Drove awesome. To St. Louis because you couldn't watch the games in. Imagine if you weren't able to watch the home games in Chicago when the Blackhawks did what they did. I mean, wild, absolutely wild. So I think at the end of the day, and it's still fresh and early, I think at the end of the day, he has to be remembered as the guy that saved the Blackhawks as an organization. And right now, I could argue that he is the second most influential sports owner since I've been alive.
The question asks, what is the legacy of Blackhawks chairman Rocky Wirtz? And legacy, by definition, the long-lasting impact of particular events, actions that took place in the past. And when you're looking at that in particular, in regards to Rocky Wirtz, it is the legacy and long-lasting impact of the championships that he brought the city of Chicago for those 3 instances over the course of 5 years. That is going to be the most significant one, because that's the one that most people are going to lean on. Of course, along those lines, and I think we are tasked with bringing it up because we do not want to be irresponsible in talking about Rocky Wirtz as a whole and his oversight of the Blackhawks organization during that scandal. So that is going to exist. But I think that what is going to be a larger part of the pie is going to be the long-lasting impact of those championships and how he'll be remembered for changing the franchise.
Before we move on, both of you quickly, how do you address the people, whether it's social media or maybe callers that we'll get later, who consider it disrespectful to include that on a day where you mourn his passing?
Yeah, that part's tough, but I think we want to be respectful to the situation as a whole. And I think the fact is that, and I think you do a very good job of mentioning it, that you can be two things at once. And you can be a man that oversaw the Blackhawks to 3 championships, but you also can be the guy that oversaw them, during that scandal.